Without thinking about it too much, and I know that we love to overthink, I want you to name a difficult emotion that you've been feeling in the last several days. Anger, disgust, frustration, resentment. Name it. One word to describe how you've been feeling. You may think it's not okay to feel these things, especially if you've faced criticism in the past, you've been told you're too emotional, or someone's just been upset with you having emotions. But today we're talking about why it's not only okay to feel these things, but also how we can use it to feel good, even when the emotions feel bad. If you've been struggling with events in your own life or events happening in the world today, this episode is for you because it's going to help us to tune in and figure out what to do right now. We're going to start off with the basics. It's going to feel like that's too simple a place to start, but to be quite honest, we as adults don't always do a great job with our emotions. And we think that we should be above it because, especially as women physicians, right, we have been taught to tune out our emotions. We've been taught to put our needs and our feelings aside, right, for the sake of others. So it's no wonder that so many of us really struggle. We're going to unpack that today, though, and we're going to figure out what do we do from here. So again, we're going to start with the very basics. What is an emotion? Depending on what you're reading or looking at, there are 6 to 8 core emotions that underlie the whole feelings wheel. If you've ever seen an emotions wheel, it's this beautifully rainbow colored thing, and it's got the core emotions in the middle, and it's got a million emotion words around the edge, right? The core emotions split off into more nuanced emotions, but the core emotions, break down basically to these things: anger, fear, happy, sad, disgusted, bad, surprised. Again, depending on which one you're looking at, there might be a few more words in there than that, or there might be a few less, but that's the basics. And we can further stratify our emotions, but sometimes if we just start with these things, we are going to be doing the right work. When we think about an emotion, people can describe it in different terms. Sometimes we're thinking about the physiologic response that we have, such as when we feel fear, right? We will have pounding in our chest. We might feel like our thoughts are racing. We might feel cold or clammy, right? Physiologic responses. Some emotions are going to be more of what people might describe as an energy or vibration, right? Other sensations in their bodies, maybe tightness in their shoulders or a sinking feeling in the pit of their stomach. We could argue as physicians about how physiologic that is, but those are the basic things that I want us to think about when we are thinking about emotions, right? They are sensations in our body. Emotions come as response to thoughts. Sometimes conscious thoughts, sometimes unconscious or subconscious thoughts. You might not be able to identify the thought that leads to the emotion, but if we sit down and slow it down, we can usually identify what is the thought that is connected to this feeling that I'm having in my body, right? I will use the word feeling and emotions interchangeably, just for the sake of ease, because that's how we talk about it. But just to know that when I'm saying feeling, I might be referring to a sensation in your body, but we might be referring to the emotion. Let's not get too caught up in it. The first thing, though, that we need to do when we are starting to identify what the hell is going on is we're going to name the emotion. I want us to name the word that we would connect to the vibration, energy, or the physiologic things that we are feeling in our body, right? We need to name it to understand it. Do you have to have a perfect name for the word? Do you have to look at all the outer edge of the... No, you don't, my friends. Let's not make it complicated. If you can break it down to, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling disgusted, we're going to call that good enough. We're going to call it good enough because we want to attach a name to it so that we can slow ourselves down and figure out what is connected to this feeling. We might tune in and sort of notice what we are experiencing in our bodies. But we also want to slow it down enough that we can start to identify what is the thought that is connected to it. Again, sometimes the thought is conscious and sometimes it's not conscious. But once we have named what we are feeling, let's identify what is the thought that is connected to this. Depending on what is going on, it may be helpful to do an exercise like a thought dump, especially if you're noticing that your thoughts are kind of racing and you might be feeling more than one emotion at a time. But if we do a thought dump and we just write down all the sentences that are going in our brain, then we have a list to choose from that we can connect to the emotion. So maybe I'm feeling both angry and disgusted, but I'm going to pick the emotion of feeling disgusted right now. I can look at those thoughts that I've written down and I can identify which ones are connected to this. We don't have to do this exercise perfectly. It's just a way that we can better understand what is going on in our brains and our bodies, because you'll see we're going to use this to do something helpful for ourselves. Another thing that you might do instead of doing a thought dump is to just sit and feel the sensations in your body. Notice if your heart rate is elevated. Notice if your stomach feels nauseated. Notice if there's tightness in your body. There might be something more detailed, like a color or, a part of your body that feels lit up by the sensation, right? If we tune into that, what is the thought that comes to mind, again, that is connected to that? So 2 different ways that we might start to approach, how can I identify a thought that is connected to it? When we have done that, right, when we've identified, we get to this place where we can say, I feel whatever it is because I think whatever the thought is. When we can slow it down to that level, right? Let's give an example. I feel disgusted because I don't believe a human should ever do that to another human. That is a thought that I've had in the last 24 hours, my friend. When we can slow it down like that, again, we are able to use this emotion to help ourselves, right? We may think, oh, that's too obvious. Of course, I don't think that, people should be doing this to a human. But rather than getting stuck in the feeling of disgust, this allows me to work my way through it, right? Because if I'm able to understand that I'm feeling disgusted because I've learned that a human has done this to another human, I'm able to look at that and without judging myself for feeling disgusted, I can say, no, I do want to have the feeling of disgust in response to that event occurring. I'm not judging myself for having the emotion that's connected to the thought about the event. I can still wish that the event or events weren't happening, hadn't happened, that the person involved hadn't made the decision that they had made to participate. I can still 100% wish that, but I won't feel judgment or anger at myself, kind of the second arrow, if you will, harming myself for feeling my human emotion in response to my thoughts connected to the event. That gets a little convoluted, but if we start to do this work and we can start to see, no, I do want to have an emotion connected to these events and my thoughts about what people should and shouldn't do, I'm not going to be dwelling in judgment about myself for feeling it. That is part of what we call digesting emotions or processing emotions. And when we are able to do that, we are moving through it so that we don't stay stuck in it. I don't have to change my reaction of feeling disgust in response to these things that happened. But because I understand it and I'm not judging myself for it, then I get to choose the next steps. Which brings us to the next part. When I am actively in my emotion, when I'm actively feeling disgusted and I'm not really aware of what I am thinking and feeling in connection to it, I'm just sitting in it and I'm going to act out of it. We forget this part, right? But when we are in our feelings drive our actions. We know that because whenever we've been angry or frustrated or resentful and we've taken actions out of that, we often look back at those actions and think, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? I wasn't going to do that. Similarly, if you have had the emotions of feeling tired, overwhelmed, resentful, and taken actions out of that emotion, right, that you didn't enjoy. Maybe you skipped your exercise. Maybe you were short with somebody or maybe stomped your feet or, gave up on something that you didn't want to give up on. Again, when we are in the emotions and acting out of that, we often have outcomes that we don't really want to have. When we are able to have slowed it down, to be able to name the emotion and understand what thoughts are connected with it, we are able to gain some space in order to be able to choose our next responses, to choose our next steps. I might not be finished feeling disgusted, but if I can understand that the disgust comes from my thoughts that are connected to whatever happened, then I'm able to be slowed down enough to say, what do I want to do from here? What do I need from this place to move on? In the instance of feeling disgusted in response to something that I've learned, right? I might choose to take the actions of calling my members of Congress, joining a march, making some kind of a statement to somebody, declaring a boundary. I might ask for help. I might, choose to journal or take some time for myself or talk to a friend, a therapist, a coach, right? We can see those actions result in a much better outcome than me staying stuck in the feeling of disgust. Trying to think what actions I would take from being stuck in the feeling of disgust. I don't know. Anger is the easier one, right? When we're feeling angry, our actions do not reflect our best selves, right? There might be a time and a place for us to act out of anger in response to something that is going on right here, right now. But for so many of us, the feeling of anger is connected to something that is not right here, right now, and requires that physiologic, bodily angry response, right? If I have read something in the newspaper or learned of some action from my organization that I have thoughts of feeling angry about, right? Me yelling in response to that, or getting in an argument, or I don't know, quitting all of a sudden, those actions out of that immediate anger are probably not going to serve me most of the time, right? So imagine what changes, though, when we can use this process to name the feeling, to identify what the thinking is, and get out of judgment for having the emotions, and then decide what action we're going to take in response. Can you see how that creates a much better place where we aren't judging ourselves for having the negative emotions? We aren't staying stuck in them. We aren't ignoring our feelings. We aren't sticking our head in the sand and choosing not to do things, right? But we are choosing to take action from a place of so much greater clarity, right? We're clear on what we're feeling. We are using our thought work to be able to connect, why do we feel that thing? And then we are taking action from that place of a better understanding. You can see that this takes a bit of work. It takes a presence and an awareness, and sometimes it takes help. I can very much identify with times before I did this training to become a coach, before I could have done this work on my own, where yeah, I absolutely needed help to be able to do things. And I will say that more often, having used this work, right, When I am in my feelings, I can use it to tune in and figure this out and move on. Like all normal humans, right? I am sometimes still going to get stuck in my feelings like you are. We are all normal humans. And, as I'm recording this, there are a bunch of just mind-blowingly difficult circumstances going on. I don't have to belabor that. I'm recording this in early February of 2026, and no matter when you are listening to it, I can guarantee you that there are difficult things going on in the world. There are difficult things going on in the world all the time. There are also challenges that pop up and pop in and out of our own lives, right? You may have somebody who's close to you who is ill. You may be in or out of a relationship. You may be in or out of work, or you're just very exhausted and overwhelmed with your responsibilities right now, whatever they are, right? We all go through different personal circumstances that lead to some of these difficult emotions. And of course, we are all citizens of the world who are experiencing very difficult challenges all the time. Sometimes those things are heightened and overlapping, and sometimes things calm down. Our emotions are part of the way that we process the world. And my friends, I would argue that all of us need a little bit of help to be able to really tolerate many difficult emotions, especially coming at you at the same time. You're not wrong or broken. Again, our socialization as women who are thought to be the caregivers of everybody, our socialization as physicians, where we're taught to ignore our own needs, both our physiological needs like our bladders, but also our emotional needs, right? We don't get the quote unquote luxury of feeling angry in response to something that a patient has said. We are supposed to take that and move it outside of the exam room. There is a time and a place for that. And yet, we will no longer stay stuck with this idea that our emotions are wrong. Our emotions were never wrong. Our emotions come from legitimate places. It comes from normal responses that we are supposed to have in relationship to difficult circumstances. Sometimes we'll want to do some some work rather, on changing the way that we think about a situation. Sometimes. But sometimes the way that we think about a situation resonates with who we are truly at our core. And thinking that our emotions are wrong is, again, just a part of not great acculturation, right? That feeds into supporting a broken system. That's a whole tangent that I'm not going to let myself go down. But I want us to get unstuck from this idea that our emotions are bad. Your negative, difficult emotions come from thoughts connected to who you are at your core. Maybe every circumstance that you experience where you have a difficult emotion doesn't fall into that bucket. But if you have found yourself feeling very upset, frustrated, angry, disgusted, resentful of things that are going on right now, you are a normal human. We will use this work together in order to help understand and process our difficult emotions. We will get out of judgment for ourselves as human beings feeling these emotions. This is the work that I do for myself. This is the work that I do every day with my physician clients. I'm going to go ahead and share too that I will be opening another group where women physicians get to come together in order to be able to do some of this work together. More details to come, but if you have been out there thinking, I feel alone in my feelings, I feel alone in my struggles as a woman physician, I feel like I don't have a great place to turn to in order to be able to really identify what my values are and what I want for my life. That is what I am creating. The container for this, again, more details to come. We are going to be starting in February of 2026 if you're listening to this in real time. It is going to be a mix of experiences, including a community of women physicians who meet together to do some of this work together, as well as one on one time. There is so much value to be gained in both a group experience as well as getting a little private space for you and I to do this work together. I'm so excited. Didn't know that I was going to talk about it today, but here we are. We're talking about it. So, again, more details to come. If that sounds compelling to you and you know that you want in, I'd like you to connect through my website, which is www.healthierforgood.com. You'll see information there as we roll it out. I also want you to email me, Megan, Megan, at healthierforgood.com. You'll see links to those in the show notes where you're listening to this podcast. I can't wait for us to get started. I will just say that this has been a long time coming in restarting something. There are reasons for that, but we need each other and we need the support of other good humans in our lives who are struggling with some of the same issues and want to do this work together. My friends, until next week, I'm with you. I'm rooting for you. Take care.